like the 20th.
Good morning, HTGR Realty. Thank you for attending this session on the CAR forms for commercial listing and commercial lease. We're focusing on lease today. If you do commercial leasing, it can be quite lucrative. So I think that we should all learn it. And we will rotate in some AIR training in the future. So right now we're going over CAR, and I'm going to get started right now sharing screen. Okay, so this was Catherine Johnson wanted the commercial listing agreement, so I just decided to do a training on it. So we're going to go through what you need to fill out. So of course, the agency disclosure is always attached at the front end. You do need to fill that out and have it signed. So you'll see this listing agreement covers a lot of things. So this is a commercial and residential income listing agreement, which may be used for commercial and any residential income property, regardless of number of units. So this is a multi-use form. So you're going to type in the owner's name, the date prepared. It could either be High 10 Partners Inc., HTGR Realty, if it is indeed residential, or you could use Coldwell Banker Commercial George Realty, and it grants the exclusive right to either sell, lease. Normally, we're not going to do exchange or option, but let's focus on sell or lease. So in this case, we're looking at a lease, and you're going to put the address here, APN, etc. So this will look very familiar to you, but this is a multi-use listing agreement, okay?
The APN, we can get that through title, right?
Yeah, or go on to Real List and I'm sorry, I can't see with these glasses looking out, and pop in the address, and Real List will give you the APN on your MLS.
This starts with 5 units or more.
No, this form is multi-use, so you can use it for either any residential income property, regardless of the units. Now, where it's going to make a difference is if you don't use our corporate name, High 10 Partners Inc., you need to make sure you're using the right name. Do not use Coldwell Banker Commercial George Realty if this is less than 5 units. Okay, so that's where there could be some confusion, but this is a multi-use form. Okay,
I think if you just use High 10 Partners Inc.,
you're safe.
everything, you're safe.
Yeah.
That's what I've been used, I just get used to doing High 10 Partners thing.
Okay.
I answer the phone saying High 10 Partners Inc.
Okay.
So you should be at
George.
Realty.
Okay,
That's the
so
last thing, High 10 Partners Inc., George Realty.
But just George Realty would be fine.
so the list.
Yes.
Yeah. Phone call, yeah, make it simple. Just George Realty, and unless they ask you, differently,
So the listing period, this is going to look very familiar from all of the other listing agreements, beginning and ending, not to exceed 24 months if improved with 1 to 4 units not owned by an entity. So this can be a long listing agreement. Most sellers probably aren't going to get on contract with you for 24 months, but at any rate, there you go. Okay, so listing price, make sure that you fill this in. Now, what happens if you have multiple units? You can put you can write in see attached addendum, but if you do write anything in there other than the list price, because maybe you have 3 units in one building, let's say if it was a commercial lease, have them initial that, right? They're also going to sign the addendum, but anything that you don't do that's exactly right on the boxes, I prefer you have it initialed, okay? Property specific listings, you would check manufactured mobile home if that's the case, or probate, conservatorship, or guardianship. Okay, so it's telling you that the compensation is all not fixed by law, and they are set by each broker and are negotiable between owner and broker. So coming down, this is all going to be very familiar. Compensation to owner's broker, only the owner's side of the transaction. You put your percent here, not, I'm going to cover the other agent later. No, just only the listing side here. Okay. And we're talking today, we're focused on leasing. Additional compensation if tenant or transfer is unrepresented does not apply to dual agency. So this isn't to pick up more money if you're representing the tenant as well. But usually in leasing, this isn't going to happen. This more pertains to sales, okay? So I just highlight it because it's in the grid. Continuation, the right for compensation. This is kind of important. So if you have introduced a tenant or a buyer, whichever way you're working this particular contract, I would put some calendar days in here, but it's not just putting the calendar days in prior to the expiration of this agreement. If they're not going to extend, you do need to provide them a list of the buyers or tenants that you've brought to the property, okay, for this to work. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And CAR has a form for that, and you'll see the form in 4D2. They'll reference it in that paragraph, okay? Owner's obligation to pay previous brokers, if that's the case here. If there is a referral fee, we went over RAD quite a bit, but if there's a referral fee, check the box. The RAD form should populate. Okay, so sometimes property management companies will refer out a building with maybe 3 or 4 commercial units to lease. So generally in that case, you're going to pay a little referral fee on the listing side only. So that could be one of the reasons there's a referral fee on a commercial lease. Okay.
Michelle, how much does the fee usually go for? You know, more or less?
Well, I know what we pay, but it is negotiable, but generally you're going to go 25%, or if it's a lot, maybe you go lower, you know, it's negotiated between who's referring and what their expectations are. Yeah.
Yes, that's how much work it should, the parties put in, you know?
Sorry.
So it can be 25%, up to 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. So items included and excluded, it's the same here. You would list those. I would think this is more important for sell, but maybe there's something special in those commercial units that's going to remain with the unit. We have seen that. So it may be even some personal furniture. I've seen that left that's very useful for somebody else. So if that's the case, they're going to want to note what they're leaving in the unit, not things that are attached to the ceilings and walls and floors, of course. Leased or liened items. I don't think this would pertain much to a lease contract, but anyway, this is for the sell if that happens to be the case. And liened items, if you know on the sell if there's any liened items. The smart home features, if the units had smart home features that the owner wants to include or exclude, that would go here. This is more for sell. This is for both lease and sell. What MLS will this be marketed in? CR MLS is ours. So normally you would have CR MLS here, okay? These are, you know, the important thing is to really look at each box and not miss anything. And that's more for the lease because there's a lot of boxes. So I always like to look at everything.
It's kind of like a checklist.
Yeah, so just look at the grids. That's why they did it like this, because it's really easy to go over this and not miss things. Publications of owner's willingness to consider concessions. If checked, the owner authorizes the broker to market that the owner is willing to consider concessions on an offer. I normally don't do that because it depends on the terms and conditions. You know, if the broker calls you and says, are they, you know, willing to make concessions for the commission, you could say, yes, as far as I know, but they need to look at your LOI first, your letter of intent. Okay, because we really can't guarantee until that lessor looks at the letter of intent, because we don't know. You know, they may cut some of the concession down if it's not, you know, to their liking all the way. This probably wouldn't happen. I can't see an owner instructing a broker not to take photographs, but if they do, you have a checkbox for that. Timing and the presentations, the owner it defaults to that you're going to present as they come, or you could check the box that when it's going to be presented, okay? And then if you do that, you need to let people know on the MLS offers will be presented on what day. So you have to give everybody a fair run at it, okay? So offer letters, owner instructs the broker not to present the offer letters, meaning those letters that are talking about family and maybe it shows pictures, because we don't want any implication that there could have been somebody swung their decision one way or the other due to something they saw in that letter. So the owner can instruct you to present it, but we recommend that they don't. So it defaults that you're not presenting those letters. Investigation reports, this really pertains more to a sale, but I've highlighted what I would want. Natural hazards is a norm, that's already checked. That defaults, but if it's in a homeowners association and the prelim, you would want that right away. So if this was a sale, I'd check those too. If there's any exceptions to ownership or title, you would fill it in here. And then this is important for the sell. If they're going to purchase a replacement property, make sure you're checking that. And the CAR form will attach to fill out regarding that. Owner opts out of a lockbox or sign. In some instances on leasing, they may opt out of a lockbox. Maybe there's a tenant in there and it's subject to that tenant vacating. You know, so there are times where I've seen they're opting out of those lock boxes.
I know sometimes they don't want to do it because they're afraid of those
Yeah.
fires, you know?
Yeah. So if that was the case, that there's a tenant in there still, because we do run into this where there's a little gap of a month or two where that tenant needs to vacate, make sure in your additional terms that you note that, subject to the vacating of the current tenant, okay? So that happens because they're getting ready to lease it prior to that tenant leaving. So the broker compensation, the BCA is always attached to this. I am not going over disclosures today. I just want to really get to the lease. So let me get down to the lease now. So commercial lease agreement. So you can go two ways. You can use CAR or you can use AIR. AIR, I would say, is a little more sophisticated, but CAR is perfectly fine as well. So whatever your client wants, if they insist on AIR, no problem, we can handle that too. Okay, so you date it for reference purpose only, the date this is being prepared. The owner's name goes here. Who is the tenant? That goes here. So the property is described as, what is the address? And it consists of approximately how much percentage of the total square footage. You would need to ask the owner that. So it could be 100%, maybe it's a single tenant building, or it could be, 10%. It depends on the building. So you would ask them that, okay? So the total square footage of rental space in the entire property. See exhibit, you could put A. What would exhibit A be? Maybe you have a floor plan drawn, but please make sure any floor plan you provide has a disclaimer on it. We don't want to be hard and fast that that's exactly accurate. So we want a disclaimer on all floor plans that you provide, okay? So you can attach a floor plan. I don't recommend that you have it. You can get floor plans without all the measurements, but always have a disclaimer on it. Okay. And by the way, we're having a class that's coming up that will be, speaking of floor plans, it's going to be trained by MLS. It's called QB Casa. QB Casa is a free app that they give the agents, and QB Casa lets you point your phone and make a floor plan. So we're really excited. They're coming. I believe it's for Lunch and Learn March 18th at 1. So we will start announcing that. So now there's a way for you to get free floor plans. And if you're electronically savvy, you can go in and look at QB Casa yourself and start using it. Okay.
You mean by the point the camera, you can get
Yes.
square footage?
You're using your phone and it draws a floor plan. Yeah,
But does it estimate the square footage of the
I
property?
don't believe it does. But it's gonna draw you something that you can use. Yeah, so that'll save you money because when we have floor plans drawn, it does cost us money. But of course, that's all measured and stuff, okay?
Is that some of that AI stuff?
I don't know, I'm technically a little bit
I'm
dense
assuming
on
it
that.
is.
Yeah,
And it is kind of AI because, yeah,
okay.
There's something exciting,
QB CASA, CUBI CASA.
Yes, and it's on the MLS, so you guys can check it out on your own. And if you need further training, the MLS team is coming here to train us. So here the term begins on what date is your commencement date? Check A or B. The lease shall terminate on the date at maybe you want to give them time to vacate 6 p.m., something like that. Or is it a month to month? Normally we're not working month to month, but you have that option. So is there going to be a renewal or extension term? Perhaps there is. You can put one 5-year option to renewal for renewal, and or you could put it on an addendum and attach it. So the base rent, the tenant agrees to pay, check only one. So per month for the term of the agreement. Maybe you don't want this. Could be a multi-year, so don't make a mistake and check the first box because maybe you have a little increase year to year. So, or number 2 is you check it and then the increases will be based on CPI. Or you could do number 3, which I've used before. I put the date, the amount here, commencing and ending for the first year. And then it gives you 2 other years here where you can put it in. Now, if you don't have enough time, room there, maybe this is a 5-year agreement. So you're just going to click the box and you're going to attach a rent schedule. You're going to line out the year. You're also going to put the rental increases for the base rent in. Okay. So this is all stuff I can help you with when you are working it, but we want to go over the basics for those of you who are looking to get in commercial and somewhat new. Base rent is payable in advance on the 1st, or you could put a different day here. Normally we just let it default. So you're going to put the name of who is this rent going to be made out to, and where is it going to be delivered to or mailed to. So make sure you fill all of this out. Early possession. I normally, unless it's, a few days, most of the people we work with, I work with Shumei, we don't have early possession unless it's just a few days. If they have early possession, do not give them keys until you have their liability certificate of liability insurance and that you've already provided it to the lessor and they have approved that certificate. You cannot release keys. That will cause a big problem until you have that. So if you are giving early possession, you must get that certificate of insurance. And I know this is silly to say, but this has to be fully executed first. We don't let people in without that, the insurance and a fully executed agreement. And what else? The money, okay? So that's when you can do an early possession. So security deposit, the tenant agrees to pay the landlord. Usually in commercial leasing, it's 2 times the rent, but it also depends on their credit and their application package. So I've seen landlords, we had one that wanted to go up to 5 and we negotiated it down to 4 months. So if it depends on their package and their strength, this could be more than 2 months, okay? And there's a box here you can check that if the base rent increases, the tenant agrees to increase the security deposit. Normally I don't check it, but that's really up to the landlord if they want you to check it, okay? And 6B tells you what the security deposit can be used for. It cannot be used by the tenant in lieu of the last month's rent, but the lessor can use it if the tenant's in default of rent or late payments or NSF fees, things like that. It'll outline here what the security deposit, and then once that's used, within 5 days of written notice to the tenant from the lessor, they need to replenish that account, okay? They need to put the security deposit back up to where it should be, okay? If they had to use it. Qualified commercial tenant. This is somewhat new, but I like that it's all embedded now. So 7 goes over what a qualified commercial tenant is. It's a restaurant with fewer than 10 employees or a nonprofit with fewer than 20 employees. And as defined under business and professional code. And you can read this, or has 5 or fewer employees, including the owner. Read all of this to know if your particular tenant is a qualified commercial tenant. So there's modifications to the agreement. If this is the case, they have a right to receive a foreign language translation of the lease or rental agreement. If a tenant has occupied the premises for 1 year or more and is on a month-to-month tenancy for these qualified tenants, the landlord shall give at least 60 days prior notice for termination. So just read this paragraph. I have not personally ran into one, but I know there's some small operators that would fall under this classification, okay? So coming down here, the payments. So the rent, it's usually the first month, but let me say that sometimes we get rental abatement, right? So you always want 1 month plus your security deposit in, whether you say that you're collecting for the first month or the 4th month, because maybe they got 3 months free rental abatement. We need 1 month in. It's not, oh no, this is free. We still need to collect 1 month plus the security deposit for the lessor, okay? So you fill in the dates here, the total due, and when it's due, you get the cashier's check upon execution of the agreement by the tenant. Then you give it to the lessor and they sign it, and that's how that goes, okay? So make sure you get that cashier's check when you are executing this with the tenant. Security deposit goes here, and then it'll total down for you. Parking, this is important. Don't leave these blank. So is the tenant entitled to any unreserved parking? Most likely it's going to be a first come, first served basis. That's what I put in there. If that's the case, are there any reserved? If there's none, I will put an NA or a 0. And parking is or is not included in the base rent. Probably if it's first come, first serve, it is included, okay? Or if there's a fee for parking, then that would go here. What is the parking going to cost per month for that reserved space, okay? But don't leave things blank, because that causes confusion later. Additional storage is permitted as follows. The right, so if there's nothing here, the right to additional storage space most likely is not included in the base rent, okay? So it's usually whatever they can store in their own unit. So make sure these little things you don't miss. It is or is not included. So we want to make a check here. And if there is additional storage that carries a per month fee, that amount goes here. You're always probably going to be checking is not included. Late fees. If they are late on the rent, you need to make sure that you fill this in for your client. How much are they going to charge as a late fee? Peter can address what amount he thinks is appropriate for commercial.
6% to 10%.
Okay, so 6 to 10% is what Peter recommends as a late charge. So you need to figure that out. Take the 6% or 10% times the base rent. Okay. And that would go in there. And then talk to your lessor about that as well, so they know what that fee is. Don't just type it in and not address it. That's the main thing. You need to draft this up first, address everything with the lessor, and then the tenant comes and signs it. The condition of the premises, this is just saying that the tenant has examined the premises and acknowledges that it's in clean and operable condition with the following exceptions. If there were any exceptions, you would put it here. Zoning and land use, the tenant is subject to all local and state and federal laws, and the tenant accepts the premises. And we do not guarantee that the zoning will be applicable or suitable for the tenant's use or future use. So it's always important when you're working with a commercial tenant to ask them to go check with the city themselves, because you don't want to not ask the right questions. Let them check to make sure. We did have an office building that was the strangest thing I've ever seen in all my years. They took an office unit and told us now it's retail. You can't put office use in there, which is what we were trying to do. So, so it was shocking because the rest of the building was office. So you need to check and make sure that the zoning hasn't changed. We always had it as an office, then they changed it to retail, but then we were able to fight it. So tenants' operating expenses, the tenant does agree to pay all utilities and services directly billed to the tenant, okay? So property, so this is property operating expenses is if they're going to pay CAM fees or common area maintenance fees. If that is not the case, then you need to check B. So if they're not paying CAM fees to the lessor, make sure that you check 15B. These are little tricks that you don't want to leave anything undone, because then there's question marks later. Use is very important. Make sure that you hit this pair 16 and put the use. Very, very important. Maintenance. These defaults, so you'll want to go over these so that it defaults to the tenant. What is this doing? Okay. What happened?
Check the bottom tab. Check the other ones, check all the other tabs.
Okay, I'm having a problem. Oh my gosh. Something's wrong with this computer.
Is it acting weird?
Yeah. Hold on, folks. I'm in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just,
She's accidentally closed that screen.
Did she? Is that what happened?
no, it was saying it was idle. If you're still here, check it. So I said, okay, I'm here. And then because it kept flashing that it was going to take me out.
Get in here, see if it.
I'm already in. Maybe I just need to, the share's up. Can you guys, anybody hear me and see the screen? Let me stop the share. Oh my gosh.
I can see the screen for signing in.
Okay. Okay. I'm so sorry that we're having a problem with this. I can't go. Okay.
You cannot minimize when
No.
you're recording. Okay, but you have where's the word stuff?
Yes, yeah, hey.
They can
Yeah,
see
there
it.
you go,
They
you
have
go
to
back
get it.
again, yeah.
I'm going to get this computer tuned up. I am so sorry, everybody.
I mean, not that thin, huh?
Maybe it's
You
not.
know what, I just don't want to put my butt right.
No,
in
it's
the
tucked
shower.
it up twice right now. Yeah.
I know it would have fit, was like, yeah, I didn't want to do that.
It's tight though, I tried it.
Michelle,
Yes.
can you go back to the form that you highlighted?
Yes, I'm going back. Yeah, because I'm sorry. I'm going back in and I'll pick up where I left off. It's just a little detour.
That'll be page 3 of 7.
Yeah.
Can you guys see my screen and what I'm doing?
No, just you, Michelle.
You can't see my screen yet?
No.
Okay. Let me get it up and then I'll share.
be all set.
Where was I?
You were at the.
Maintenance.
Oh, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see my screen on Zoom?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
on 18 maintenance.
Okay, so we're in the maintenance. So make sure that you look at these and if you need to amend them, there's a checkbox that would switch it to the other party. So I want to talk about the A. So the tenant shall professionally maintain the premises, including heating, air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, and water systems, if any. So the main thing that you need to be concerned with is, of course, that they're all operable, but also that HVAC unit, is it servicing one unit? Is it servicing an entire building? How old is it? Those kind of things, because you may want to put the HVAC unit, if it is one servicing the one unit, you need a warranty on it. I would highly recommend that you know the year of the unit and things like that, because those are very costly, okay? So professionally maintained, that's fine. If it goes down, I probably would put something in this agreement because AIR has more paragraphs on who's responsible should it go down. You may want to say, you know, if it stops working due to no fault of the tenant, you know, that the lessor shall be responsible, but I'll show you where you can put things like that. Okay. So the tenant shall keep glass, windows, and doors in operable and safe condition. And the landlord will maintain the roof, foundation, exterior walls, common areas, and you could put something in here, okay? Whatever you're trying to ask the lessor to maintain, okay? So if the tenant fails to maintain the premises, the items that they've agreed to, the lessor can go ahead and have those items maintained, repaired, whatever they need, and charge the tenant, okay? So that's in 18D. So the alterations, the tenants are not allowed to make alterations, including installation of trade fixtures, signs without the lessor's prior written consent. Government imposed alterations, any alteration required by law as a result of the tenant's use is the tenant's responsibility. However, the lessor is responsible for any other alterations required by law, okay? So if their use triggers some kind of government requirement, they're going to need to pay for that. Okay, entry. So the tenant needs to make the premises available for the lessor or lessor's agent for purpose of entering the unit to make, you know, any inspections or necessary repairs. That's pretty standard. For the signs, the tenant does authorize the lessor to place a for sale sign at any time and a for lease sign on the premises within 90 days preceding the termination of the agreement, or you can amend it to 60, whatever you need there, okay? Subletting is not allowed unless you have the prior written consent of the lessor. They will go through a whole credit check and application package, most likely if you're subleasing, okay? But don't just bring somebody in and lease them a little room in the unit. That's not allowed, okay? Possession, now this is something to pay attention to. So if the lessor is unable to deliver possession within 60 calendar days after the agreed commencement date, then the tenant may terminate this agreement. I like this a little lower because 60 days is a long time for a business to go, hey, you're not able to deliver. So you may want to, in 24, amend these days lower if you're representing the tenant.
6 days for though, okay.
Yeah, you may want to put, I don't know, 20 days or whatever you think here. But 60 days is a long time. Most, you know, I haven't seen that they can't deliver, but just to protect your client, that's why I say look at all the check boxes and make sure you understand them. So 25 is the tenant's obligation upon vacating the premises, you know, give all the keys, vacate the premises and surrender to the lessor empty. of persons and personal property and things of that nature. And then the give written notice to the landlord of tenant's forwarding address. So when they write this agreement, if they have a forwarding address that is a stable address for them, make sure you're filling that in. If not, make sure that they send an email to the lessor of their forwarding address. Okay, so breach of the contract, early termination. So if that happens, you can read this paragraph, but the gist is too that the tenant is responsible for any lost rent, rental commissions, advertising expenses, things of that nature, painting, what it will cost to get the premises ready to re-rent. Okay, so hopefully you don't run into this. So damage to the premises. That's if it by no fault of the tenant that the unit was partially damaged or destroyed by fire, earthquake, etc. It goes over the terms of what would happen then. Hazardous materials, the tenant shall not use, store, generate, or release any hazardous materials in the premises. Okay, so make sure that they understand that and don't do that. Okay. So if all or part of the premises is condemned to public use, this is the paragraph on that. All the proceeds exclusive of those allocated by the condemner to the tenant's relocation costs and trade fixtures do belong to the lessor. Okay, so I haven't seen this happen, but I suppose that it could. Now, this is important. This is why we don't miss boxes where we need to be filling things in, because I have reviewed some of these and some of these boxes are missed. So right here on insurance, extremely important that you do fill in a number amount that the tenant liability insurance, an amount not less than, here's the box to fill in. Okay. So you need to be discussing this with the lessor, how much they want you to fill in there. Okay. I don't fill in what the landlord is going to maintain as their liability insurance. I just don't fill it in, but I'm going to make sure that I hit the tenant one because it's really important, because that's where you're going to get your certificate of insurance. Okay. So we have to protect the lessor and the tenant. If they need a tenancy statement or a estoppel, then the tenant needs to comply with that. And failure to comply with the requirement is can be a breach of the contract. Okay, so sometimes lenders are asking for estoppel certificates. That's why a landlord may be asking even a tenant. Maybe the lender is looking to see what the rents are and have those estoppel certificates. So if the landlord transfers this property, sells it, the lease transfers to the new owner and the current landlord is released from any further liability. I'm not going to go into the subordination. That is more of a lender thing and I don't really understand it too much, but subordination, is there anything we should know about that?
Well, it's just merely saying that you have the right given to the other party, the lender.
Oh,
So that
okay.
they have a first right to exercise their right,
For liens.
use, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty standard.
Okay, so that's the subordination clause. And the tenant representation credit, they're warranting that everything that they told you in their application package is true. So you could read that if you wish. This is important not to miss. 3435, construction related accessibility standards. Do not miss checking this. This is why I've given highlighted copies in the room. Landlord states that the premises have or have not been inspected by certified access specialists, CASP. It's usually have not been. All the ones that I've worked on, it's have not been, and that's fine. But if it has been, then there's a series of questions you need to answer and provide the report down here. But please don't miss filling that out. If you guys on Zoom would like a highlighted copy of this, I can certainly email it to you. Okay. So notwithstanding anything in the contrary to the above paragraphs or elsewhere in the lease, any repairs or modifications necessary to correct violations of construction-related accessibility standards to the premises are the responsibility of who? Who's going to be responsible, the tenant or the lessor? You need to have a discussion. Peter, on this one, I think it's the lessor, but it could be the tenant.
This is,
So it's if there's a violation of construction-related accessibility standards to the premises, who's
depends
responsible?
on the, what is it, common area, and whether the, it's inside your
Oh, okay.
premises.
There you go. So you could put on other, common areas shall be, they call it the landlord, so we'll use the same language. Landlord's responsibility, comma, tenants inside interior of tenant's unit shall be tenant's responsibility. So, but make sure we're not missing any of these boxes, okay? So mediation, and then here's arbitration of disputes in case, the landlord and the tenant want to agree to arbitration, they would initial here to make that effective. Okay? So,
Now I want to point out that the arbitration is not automatic. Okay, you don't have to agree to arbitration. Now, mediation is okay because it's non-binding, and then it's a mutual agreement between the lessor and the lessee. You can go through mediation, no problem. But arbitration, you have to be careful. If you put to check the arbitration, that means you are obligated to go through the arbitration, and arbitration is legally binding and final.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you check it, okay, so what if you take the person go to mediation, that's, okay, and they don't clear it, then they have to go to arbitration.
Yes.
Okay, but if they get it cleared up in mediation? And then, and even though it's checked.
Clear?
Yeah.
It means it gets settled.
Yeah,
during the
it gets settled,
mediation.
right.
They don't have to go to arbitration, of course.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure. before you
No,
say-
if you settle, then why do you have to go to
Yeah,
arbitration?
But I know, the other one is a lot more.
Yeah.
The
So,
arbitration can be very expensive.
Yes.
yeah, so my thing is, so between 36 and 37, you're giving the lesser the option whether they want to do mediation or arbitration.
No, mediation applies whether you initial arbitration. Mediation is automatic, isn't it? In the contract, is
The mediation
mediation is,
Yeah,
Is-
because it's mutually
Yeah.
agree between the lessor and the lessee.
yeah,
So, and it's not legally binding, so
yeah,
even if you say that I don't want to go to mediation, it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
Because if you go to mediation and one party doesn't want to settle, you cannot force them to settle.
yeah.
Okay, and, they're
Arbitration.
not bounded to go to arbitration, okay, got it.
But
Yeah.
if you don't go through the mediation, or if you check the arbitration,
You got to go.
and you don't want to go to the arbitration, when you sue, then they will go tell the judge and then mandate the arbitration. So in other
Oh,
words, they will send it back to the arbitration, and you still have to go through the arbitration. But if you didn't check the arbitration, then you have the option of going to a lawsuit.
okay.
Okay, got you.
So, let's see, that is pretty much concludes, but other terms and conditions and supplements, you can put that here. Like, let's say you wanted a warranty for something, you could type that in there. Anything that other terms that you need to add to the agreement for your client, you can type it in here. If this isn't enough space, go ahead and attach an addendum. So the main issues that we see with these forms is that people aren't checking off the check boxes, right? Because there's a lot of check boxes. So I think it's best you take the agreement, you print it, you highlight all the check boxes, and then when you're typing, you know to hit all those boxes and not miss one. So attorney fees, if there's any action or proceeding arising out of this agreement, the prevailing party shall be entitled to reasonable attorney fees, okay? Entire contract, it all has to be in writing. Nothing new. Agent confirmation, make sure you do this again back here, even though you have an agency always attached. Okay. Legally authorized signers, this is nothing new. If it's an entity, you click the box, put the full name of the entity here, who is authorized to sign on behalf of that entity. You would put their name here, and then the tenant signatures go down here. Guarantee, don't forget this, if there is a guarantor on this and it's required by the lessor, make sure that you are filling out this box and having the guarantor sign it right here. You have to check that box, okay? And the same thing here, if the landlord happens to be an entity, you need to fill all this out, get it signed. And that concludes the training. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the share.
I do.
Okay.
When are we starting the commercial classes? I know in March, but we haven't heard anything.
We haven't heard anything.
Yeah, we
Yes.
don't know.
Pending.
Yeah, it's still pending. Corporate has to schedule it and they're supposed to notify us, so it's not scheduled yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Question.
okay.
Under A1, it says not to exceed 24 months if improving with 1 to 4 units. What if it's 5+ units? How far can they go in advance?
For 5+ units, you can do a year. It's not going to be a problem.
But so can you do 24 months or more on?
I think you can, because I am, in fact, who was I working with? I just had to like look all that up. And I think it was Kenny I was working with. And so we looked up all of the regulations and he could go almost 24 months on something he was doing, but I'll look it up again. Yeah, because for commercial, I didn't see anything that would prohibit you from doing that.
Going above the.
Yeah. No, well, I wouldn't go above 24, but for him, he was looking to do 20, at least a year.
Oh.
But I'll look that up and then when I email everything out, I'll put a note on this for everybody. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Okay, well, as always, if you need any help, we're here for you. You know, be sure and reach out if you're working on a contract and have questions or have any issues. Make sure you reach out. We're here to help you and support you and close your transactions. Thank you all very much and have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy Valentine's.